Welcome back to another North Carolina Tar Heels football podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you are watching us on our very, 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 very fast-growing YouTube channel that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is THI staff writer and resident Jack, Mr. Brandon Peay. And Brandon, we're here to talk QB1, QB2, QB3, and QB4. I think we know that Conor Harrell's QB3, and we know Jefferson Boaz is QB4. And Miss King will tell you that having a guy like Jefferson Boaz as QB4 is a pretty good thing. A lot of teams around the country would love to have that deep a room at quarterback, but we're really going to focus here on the battle for QB1. We're about to find out. We're just a couple days away from finding out for sure who will take the first snap when the Tar Heels kick off the 2022 season Saturday night, August 27th at home against Florida A&M, 8 p.m. start inside Kenan Stadium. We'll know going in who takes the first snap, but it'll be interesting seeing somebody other than Sam Howell go out there and take the first snap behind center. So we'll give our opinions on who we think that's going to be at some point in this podcast. But your thoughts right now as we close in on learning about the decision the staff has made. What are your thoughts about where the room is right now?
So in a weird way, the quarterback room reminds me a lot of the defensive line room, and the fact that when Mack Brown first got to Carolina, he had Sam Howell, Cade Fortin, and Jace Ruder. And the Jace Ruder got injured, and Cade Fortin decided to transfer, leaving UNC with only one scholarship quarterback. And they had to really be careful with how they played him. But then, they hit the recruiting trail, and then they got Jacoby Criswell, Drake May, Jefferson Boaz, Conor Harrell. It's kind of the same with the defensive line room. They hit the recruiting trail, and they built really good depth in the room. And now I think the quarterback room is the best that Mack Brown has had since he's returned to UNC. I believe regardless of who the starting quarterback is, the drop-off from the first string to the third string won't be as dramatic as it was in years past. And, although right now we don't know who the quarterback will be until they officially announce it, the question mark for me is not whether the quarterback is going to be good, whether they'll get production out of the quarterback spot. The question for me is simply who is going to be the quarterback. That's why I don't really consider the quarterback position a concern, even though we have no idea who the quarterback is going to be, and whoever the quarterback is going to be highly inexperienced.
There's a narrative going around, which is a little inaccurate, that Mack Brown has said, hey, we're going to play two quarterbacks. He did say in this spring, and at the end of spring, and when we talked to him in June at that all day long press series, 22 press conferences that day, and then at the ACC kickoff in Charlotte, which you were at, he did talk about, hey, I've used two quarterbacks before, I'll do it again. But we haven't heard that since fall camp started. So that narrative, I wouldn't say it's been debunked, but I listen to every word. I'm there. I'm in every press conference. I'm at every interview, whether it's on Zoom or in person. I'm there. Every moment of availability we have, I'm there for. You've been there for most of it. I'm not getting the impression that they're going to play two quarterbacks. And part of the reason I say this is because they're talking a lot about how they've scaled some stuff down, because they're going to be very, very young. Now that British Brooks is out, they're even younger in the backfield. Now that Antoine Green's out for a while, they're super young at wide receiver. So you scale stuff back. Mac didn't like using the word simplify, but they're just scaling it back. They're not going to use as much. They're not making things easier. They're just not going to maybe throw as much once the ball is snapped out there. We have said in a couple of pods where we think there'll be a lot more interesting position grouping, personnel groupings on the field in pre-snap, but they're going to run a lot of basic stuff out of it because of the youth at the skill spots and the inexperience at the skill spots. And I maintain this: if you're going to scale back and you're going to allow time to sort of speed up the process of a bunch of young, inexperienced guys to get up to snuff, it doesn't make sense to do that rotating quarterbacks. You would want one guy out there, getting them used to one guy, building that with one guy. If you throw two dudes out there who have different skill sets, that I think that would slow the overall process. What do you think about that?
I agree. You got to get one guy out there. You got to get him all the reps that he can get and let him see the things that he's never seen before, because that's the only way you can grow as a quarterback. Jacoby and Drake, they both are really talented players that could start at a lot of Power Five programs. But with recruiting going as well as it is at North Carolina, I don't know when the next time a quarterback is just going to come to North Carolina and just be the starter right off, just be the starter immediately. I think Sam Howell might be the last guy without a position battle. I mean, Sam Howell might be the last guy since for a long time, just by the way the recruiting is going. They're always going to have a lot of really talented guys on the team. And one thing, this is actually something that was said a long time ago. Sam Howell said this before his freshman year started. One of the reporters asked him, how does he feel about going into a position battle at North Carolina? Would he consider leaving if not winning it or something? And he said, if you're going to play for a good team at the Power Five level, you're going to have to compete for the quarterback position. And now North Carolina is in that position where they can have all these good quarterbacks come in. Now they can compete and they can choose the best one. And I agree with you. They need to find the guy that they want to run with and give him all the reps he can get so he can get used to being the first string guy, get used to talking to the media, just getting used to being the face of the program as a whole.
Yeah, when Sam came in, the two guys, Reuter and Fortin, they both played a little bit the year, but Fortin started the Virginia Tech game. He started the NC State game, but he got banged up. And I'll never forget Larry put him out there to make that long throw at the end of the Duke game when he had to hobble on the field. I never understood that, but he had been injured, and he got rocked pretty good. Reuter played 25 snaps in the Georgia Tech game, then broke his shoulder, I guess it was, or his collar, broke a bone in his shoulder, and was done. I mean, they both had played some, but both had been injured, and I think the belief was Fortin was understandably a 3-star. Reuter was maybe a little overrated as a 4-star. That's not my opinion. That's just what I had heard from some people. As much as I like both, and I love Reuter. I thought Reuter was an awesome prospect. I saw him a lot before he arrived at Carolina. I really, really liked him. I think the difference now is that with Jacoby, you have a guy that's been in the system a while. He wasn't looking to bolt like Fortin obviously was. Fortin went to South Florida. Now he's in Arkansas. So and he originally committed to Texas A&M. I mean, he just hasn't stayed fully committed to anywhere. Jacoby is a little bit different. He stuck this out, obviously, behind Sam that made it a little bit easy. But he's a different type of personality. He's a very cerebral guy. He looks like the type of dude that'd be tremendous at game management. You need to be a game management guy, especially with a lot of young receivers on the field and young running backs. Someone has to know what the heck's going on every snap. Someone has to definitely not be frazzled on every snap when you've got so much youth out there. Jacoby carries a lot of those intangibles. I'm not sure if Fortin or Reuter ever carried those intangibles. That makes this a legitimate battle. I think when Sam stepped on the field the first practice in 2019, I don't think that was a battle anymore. I think it was one. Now, I do think that Drake was probably a little bit ahead of Jacoby when he stepped on the practice field on July 29th here, but I don't think it was as demonstrative as that was. Okay, one guy's better one day than the other guy, and then they would flip it the day after that. I think Sam was just a better guy every day back then. It's different now. And I think that competition is great for both of these kids. And I think it does, whoever does get the nod, I think it tells you that the staff might not hesitate if someone's really struggling, pull them and put the other guy in, which is why they're going to keep both, in my opinion. They'll keep them at least for this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Criswell and Drake, it's like the talent level is there. We haven't really had a real opportunity to see them in stressful situations. We've only got to see them play against Wofford, and that's too small of a sample size with not good enough competition to really make any judgments. So it's hard to really like make any definitive statements. But I actually rewatched the Wofford game last night, and from what I saw from Drake May, I think he showed a lot of signs of being a special talent in that game. Just from him throwing the ball, his average attempt was 10 yards down the field, and he went 7 for 9 passing. One of his passes was a drop. One of his incompletions were dropped. And it's just like, if you compare it to Jacoby, his throws were a lot more safer, little underneath stuff. He had a 6 yard, I believe his was 6 yards per attempt. So he's a little bit more safer. And I just think, the ceiling for Drake May is just so high with the way he can throw the ball, the way he's not willing to push it down the field. It puts a lot of pressure on the secondary because you can never relax. He's always willing to throw up a 50-50 ball and just give his guys a shot. And I just think that alone will separate him in this competition. I know we're not doing predictions.
Okay, but go back to what I just said about Jacoby. And I'm not saying Drake can't manage. We know Jacoby can manage. I mean, he's 2.5 years in.
Yeah.
Phil Longo is a hawk on monitoring the management aspect of games. One of the reasons Sam won that job I would say very easily. I really do think he won it easily. It was because Sam could manage. Sam could see all 11 defenders. He knew he just knew everything. He was the football equivalent of a gym rat from a physical standpoint and a film room standpoint. Jacoby has a lot of those attributes. So if you have a young team, you need to make sure everybody's lined up, everybody's in the right groove. You want to have that dude who could move that thing downfield. Does Drake have that? Of course, we don't know 100% about either one because we haven't seen them in the stressful situations you're talking about. But where we're headed at here, so the listeners kind of understand my point I brought up and your point, and I'm not leaning toward anybody with the point I'm making, is that I think that's where we see these guys. Jacoby obviously has the gun. He can throw 75 yards. He can get it downfield. He can tuck and run and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that from our understanding is the strength there is the management aspect of things. With Drake, there's a broader range. So you don't zero in and say, well, this is absolutely the strength. He does a lot of things really, really well. Does that make a lot of sense with a group that's now lost a senior wide receiver and lost a senior running back? I think to some people, and I've had some conversations that, that changes it a little bit. That might make it, hey, you got to get the older guy in there. The flip side of that, Brandon, is that if you're going young and you're saying, you know what, we're just going to put the shiniest toys, the shiniest objects on the field, because ultimately that's going to better get this program more efficiently and maybe quicker get this program to where Mac wants it. By playing those guys and getting them out there. They make mistakes, they make mistakes. Look, if you make mistakes against Florida A&M, you should be able to survive. Still, as much respect as I have for App State, that team should go in there and win that game. They go down to Atlanta. I've got respect for that team too. That's not App State, but it's still a club that could be dangerous. It's another place to make mistakes before you get an open date, and then you get Notre Dame, and then you're supposed to be somebody when Notre Dame comes to town. But I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes into 23, maybe even 24. Mac said, I watched that Portraits thing the other day, which you should watch. If Carolina fans haven't seen it, it's phenomenal. James Bates does a really good job with that. Mac says, he was asked, when do you walk away? He says, I came back here to get the program back to where it was. Well, where was the program when he left? Shiny objects everywhere and shiny objects playing at a high level. And they weren't afraid to play the young guys because the young guys were just better. And that's how they got to back-to-back top 10 seasons. So, may I ask you, management guy or shinier object?
Personally, I like the shiny objects because I think the upside with I'm gonna call him Drake May. I'm not gonna call him a shiny object. It's just the upside. The upside with it is just too much to pass on. And with Drake May, you have a chance to really let him come and grow with the recruiting class that he came in with and the one before him, and just let them grow together. And I just think the upside and what this team could ultimately accomplish with Drake May at quarterback is just too much to pass up on. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Also, we need to debunk a pathetic narrative that's out there that Drake May is just a drop back passer. Man, I'm so sick of stereotypes with football, with athletes.
Yeah.
We see them all the time, and I'm sick of them with quarterbacks. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Drake May can run. Yeah. Drake May's an athlete. If you don't think he can run, it's because you haven't seen him run, and you're just stereotyping. The dude can move. Phil Longo went out of his way when we talked to him a week and a half or so ago, say, guys, Drake can move. He's got a stride. He can move. Dina compares him a little bit to Trevor Lawrence in his ability to tuck it and run. Trevor got picked up. And when Clemson won at Carolina in 2019, Trevor had some huge runs for third downs in that game. He had a stride. Linebackers had to chase. They had to get him. They had to bring him down from behind. Drake has some of that in him. Now, she didn't compare him to Trevor as the full package, just in that sense that think of that when you think of Drake as a runner for the people that haven't seen him run. And I'm not going to pigeonhole Jacoby by saying he's just a game manager. He's a playmaker too. I just think that there's a little bit more with everything Drake can do than with what Jacoby could do. But the question is, who's best for where they are right now? Does the staff say, that's the best guy with this group right now? Or do they say, this is the guy that will be best with that group in November? I think that's, what question do they ask and what question do they answer? And I think there might be a different answer to those questions, Brandon.
Yeah, there could be. I mean, obviously, I believe Jacoby might be better right now. He really might be better right now just because he's been in the system longer. He probably knows the offense a little better because he's sitting in the film room with hours as a true freshman with Sam Howell and Phil Longo. You have to pick something up. Like even if you're in their sleep, you're gonna know more football when you leave than when you came in. So just the extra year of experience can really help Jacoby Criswell out. And him being an older guy, he knows the importance of managing the game because a lot, when you say somebody's a game manager, oftentimes that a negative connotation to it, but it's really not. It's what every offensive coordinator wants their quarterback to do is manage the game. So if you got a guy like Jacoby Criswell in there that can manage the game, I mean, that's a really, really good second option if he's the second option.
Yeah, Vince Young and Cam Newton won national championships as dynamic quarterbacks, but they were also great game managers at the college level. Now, when Cam got to the NFL level, he wasn't as great a game manager, and that's where he sometimes ran into trouble, but he was still really good, really effective.
Dynamic playmaker.
But at the college level, those two were still game manager isn't just get him the ball, make this proper handoff. A game manager is, I've got big time dude ability. When do I decide to use that dude ability and tuck it run? When do I make big plays? That's all part of management. Mm-hmm. Management isn't just I'm a facilitator. It's knowing when to do stuff, when not to do stuff. Jacoby's really, really smart. And he's really smart in general. He's really smart in a football sense. And he's got all those other attributes. I just think long-term, Drake is the guy. So the question is, do they go long-term initially and build toward that? I think if you're throwing out all those other freshmen, and if you're going really, really young, you're saying, okay, you don't want to use shiny objects, but let's say you just simply put the most talented guys in the field and you deal with some of the snafus that they're going to make and you try to quickly refine so they're ready for when the season starts getting tough on September 24th. If you do that with the other position groups, I think you need to do that at quarterback too. And I'm not saying that he's even behind it all. I think Drake's really, really smart. I covered Luke. I have a ton of admiration for the work ethic that Luke had. Luke knew what he was all about. There was nothing in his game that ever said, I'm going to try to do something that my body can't do. That was not Luke May. I think Drake is the same way, but Drake's the best athlete in that family. I think Drake can do a lot of things. If you saw those clips from the scrimmage the other day that came out there, where there's a play that Drake made that you don't see guys make plays like that. And I know it's a clip and they put it out there, but they know what they're putting out there. Mm-hmm. It's not like, hey, some dude said, hey, that's a cool thing. Let's put that out there. They know everything. They're so calculated. They pay attention to literally everything in that program. Nothing sneaks past the goalie there. And that clip was there, and I had about a dozen people that took that clip and sent it to me, including the guy I'm talking to right now, said, look at that. I was like, yeah, that's exactly it. If you can do the basics and you've got that, you're the guy.
Yep.
That's my opinion.
And the thing going back to Jacoby Criswell managing the game, that comes with being able to diagnose the defense also. Like you looking at the defense, understanding there's two high safeties, there's one high safety. So where's that other safety? Like being able to process things like that is what makes Jacoby Criswell such a threat to Drake May for the starting quarterback position. But what I will say is things like that can be taught, but the things that Drake May does, you can't teach it. Like you can't teach 6'4", you can't teach the arm, you can't teach the mobility, you can't teach being able to throw. You can't teach any of that. So it's like the thing that Jacoby Criswell excels at mentally, I believe, if Drake May isn't there already, he can get there with reps in the film room, reps on the field.
Not to get John Copenhaver in trouble here, but he did say it's on the record. He said when he was asked to compare the two, Jacoby's got a rocket for an arm. And we knew that. Jacoby told us he could throw 75 yards downfield. There aren't any plays in the playbook that call for a 75-yard pass, but he can do it. But he said Drake gets you the ball. Gets it there. So we'll see.
Yeah. And okay.
And by the way, and very quickly, Conor Harrell, really talented, very good. It's a guy that's going to be a factor at some point, whether it's there or somewhere else. And I say that with quarterbacks because they hightail it all the time in college football. But I think I agree with you about one of the early comments you made. The quarterback room is in fantastic shape. Carolina fans should not be. I would be concerned about wide receiver a little bit. I would be concerned about the offensive line if I were Carolina fans. I'd even be concerned about the running back room because the first time that Petaway and Hampton get hit by another college linebacker at game speed and game situation, well, okay, what does that do? Does that set them back a couple of steps, or do they just keep rolling along? We'll see. You never know until they actually get out there. But I don't think there's any issues, any worries about quarterback. I think that the two of them, whoever, let's say it's Jacoby and you roll them out there, I think they'll be a good team with Jacoby.
Yeah, for sure.
But Drake out there, I think they'll be a good team as well. I just think it's a matter of who's the best fit for this group, especially where the unit is at this time. And if you're thinking long term. And that's why I project that Drake will be the starting quarterback. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. And speaking of
that caveat in there, could be wrong.
Speaking of Conor Harrell, we haven't talked much about him, but the next time this team has a quarterback battle, he will be a part of it. I don't know when that will be, when that quarterback battle will take place, but he'll definitely be a part of it. Because when we came and saw him in practice, I had to check the roster to see like who is that guy, because I was surprised about how strong his arm was, the mobility, and then people around the program telling us about how smart he is. Like, this kind of goes back to the star rating conversation we had the other day. Is like that's not a 3-star player from what we've got from the opportunities we got to see in practice.
More 4, yeah.
He's more of a 4-star type guy. I can definitely
he's a winner, state champion in Alabama. So he's going to battle either Jaden Davis or maybe Matauer in a couple of years, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Little recruiting tidbit.
I'm not going there. We had to bring Miss King in on for that one. But, And you did just recently speak to Jaden Davis and see him play, but we're not going to go down that path right now. All right. So your projection is Drake?
Drake May. 100%.
Yeah, that's my projection as well. All right. Hey, remember, guys, you can be a big shot Tar Heel insider too. If you it's just $8.33 a month. Go over to THI, go to our site, tarheelillustrated.com, and you can sign up. That means when you're at the water cooler at work, or when you're at the bar, or in line at the store, or hanging out at your kid's Little League game or soccer game, and you're talking Carolina football, basketball, and recruiting, you can be the big dog. You can be an insider too for just $8.33 a month. So much of what we do that you need to know never makes it to the front page, never makes it to Twitter, never makes it to these podcasts. It hangs out there in the message board for a reason, and that's where the premium subscribers get so many goodies. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, also, if you agree or disagree with anything that me and AJ say, the message boards are an excellent place to go over there and air those grievances with us.
And I know, and we don't bite people's heads off for doing it. People are, hey, I disagree. I always say I respectfully disagree, which is nice. See, we have a nice board.
Yeah.
We don't have a bunch of mudslinging on our board. We don't have a bunch of thread hijackers that derail threads, because when they do, when that rarely happens, we get that, we either lock it or we get that sucker back on track. So,
yeah.
All right. He's Brandon. I'm AJ. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.